Is the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra worth buying in 2021? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. Hey everybody, this is Andre here covering for Kevin on the Kevin Breeze channel, and in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. These days, you can get this phone factory unlocked for all major carriers. For more information on pricing, availability, and just to learn more about the phone in general, be sure to check the link in the description. This link will take you directly to the phone on Samsung's website where you can get some really good trade deals that you're not going to be able to find anywhere else. That being said, let's get started. Now this phone has a 6.9-inch dynamic AMOLED 2X display with a resolution of 1440p and a PPI of 496. The phone has an aspect ratio of 19.3 by 9 and a screen-to-body ratio of 91.7%. Definitely some of the thinnest bezels I've seen. This phone looks really modern and sleek, and even among flagship phones today, it really does stand out. Compared to a phone like the iPhone that's basically had the same design for years, this phone looks so much newer and more modern, and definitely has a timeless design that in 5 years from now, you're going to be able to look at and still be rather impressed by. We have a hole punch here for the front-facing camera, and this camera is 10 megapixels. This design for the front-facing camera really does add value to the overall look of the phone as well. Taking out most of the bezel and putting the camera right on the display itself really makes it look a lot more modern, and I really like that look. Now this phone has 128 gigabytes of internal storage with microSD card expansion, which is really a great amount of storage. Compared to its competitors like the iPhone that starts out at 64 gigabytes, this is definitely great, especially since you can expand the storage with a microSD card if you do need to. You're really not going to be running out of storage anytime soon, even if you do things that take up a lot of space. To give you a better idea of what this looks like, I have everything I use on a daily basis downloaded onto the phone, and that takes up 28.35 gigabytes. Now this is definitely a large amount of space. I use a lot of bigger apps, and it really does take up a decent amount. But compared to the available storage on this phone, it's really only taking up 22%, leaving a lot of room for other stuff that you might put on the phone. Definitely if you're doing things like running larger apps, especially games, or if you take a lot of photos and videos and do that sort of content creation, then this space is definitely going to come in handy. But no matter what your situation is, I always like to say more storage is always better, so this is a great advantage this phone has. Now, as expected from any flagship phone, this phone does have wireless charging, and it also has a fingerprint scanner on the display. I really like that about these newer Samsung phones. A lot of phones these days, even the higher end ones like the Google Pixel for example, do have a fingerprint scanner on the back of the phone, and I feel like a physical fingerprint scanner is really getting outdated in this day and age. And compared to the iPhone that doesn't even have a fingerprint scanner at all, it's definitely nice to have it on the display. It really gives it a more advanced modern appearance. Let's give it a try. All right, one more time. As you can see, it's very fast and responsive. I definitely have no complaints there. Another thing I like about having an on-screen fingerprint scanner as opposed to a physical one is that there's less of a chance to get dirt and debris in the way of scanning your finger. If you have an indentation on the back of the phone like all those old ones do, then it's a lot easier for a piece of dirt or some sort of debris to get stuck in there, causing the scanner to not recognize your fingerprint. This can be really frustrating if you're trying to open your phone fast, so having it on the display instead is a lot more convenient. Now this phone also does have face unlock, which is really nice. It's good to have a couple different options to choose from to unlock your phone. Now taking a look at the camera setup, we do have a triple camera setup here. We have a rear camera with 108 megapixels, a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 12 megapixel telephoto lens with 50x hybrid zoom. Now this camera is super high end, really impressive. With 108 megapixels, you're definitely going to get some really high quality pictures. And as far as the telephoto lens, having a literal telescope on a smartphone is definitely something that you don't see every day. I can tell just by the camera alone that this is a very high-end device, and if you're doing a lot of photography and content creation and that sort of thing, then this is probably going to be one of the best, if not the best option out there. I feel like even compared to a lot of DSLRs out there, the camera of this phone is really competitive and most likely better than a lot of them. This is the regular camera mode, of course. This screen in person is so crisp, the image quality is great. In order to get into ultra wide mode, you hit the button right here. And then the telephoto lens is accessed right here. And as you can see, you can go up to 50x zoom. And even zooming in on an object so close, the image quality is still great. You can access portrait mode right here. And another interesting feature that this phone has that I don't see on a whole lot of other phones is portrait video mode. Now, I'm not sure exactly when you would get use out of this feature, but if you do a lot of content creation, especially videos and that sort of thing, then I'm sure it'll come in handy at some point. This phone doesn't have a macro camera, but with the telephoto lens, I really don't think it needs one. With how far you can zoom in without losing any of the quality, I really don't think the macro camera is altogether necessary, and I really appreciate how Samsung made this camera able to really do everything. Just doing a quick test of the video mode of the phone. We are shooting in 8K right now. Also keep in mind the audio quality. And that was the video mode of the phone. It does shoot in qualities up to 8K at 24 frames per second, which is definitely exceptional. As far as the audio goes, it was at full volume and there was no distortion. In a lot of phones, even higher end phones, sometimes the audio does get distorted from the phone speaker. And me personally, I don't really like to use headphones and speakers all the time when I'm consuming content or watching a video, any of that stuff. So sometimes I do like to play it out of the phone speaker itself. So having a good phone speaker is definitely important for that. And this one really had no problem playing at higher volumes without getting distorted. Now internally, we have 12 gigabytes of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 Plus processor. I ran a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on this phone and it has a single core score of 981 and a multi-core score of 3266. So definitely as far as processing power goes, this is one of the most powerful phones out there at this point. So really whether you're doing content creation, video editing, photo editing, lots of content consumption, heavy gaming, it's going to be able to handle anything you need it to handle. One thing I would say though is if you're only using your phone for basic activities like making calls, sending text messages, maybe a little content consumption here and there, and that sort of stuff, you might not want to go this high. This is definitely a very high-end device, and if you're not going to be using all these features and all this processing power, then you might not want to go this route, because at that point, if you're really not going to be utilizing this type of processing power, it's not going to provide you the same value it would if you really needed it. Now this phone has a 4500 milliamp hour battery that supports 25 watt fast charging. So definitely a strong battery that really goes well with a powerful processor like this phone has. And the fast charging is really nice too. If you're going to be on the move a lot and away from a charger, then definitely not going to have to worry about battery life as far as this one goes. The battery of this phone is just as powerful, if not more powerful, than some of those Motorola phones out there that are really known for their batteries. So that's really impressive. And of course, this phone does run on Android 10, so you're going to be getting all the latest updates and features. Again, I would say one thing to really keep in mind, especially when looking at high-end devices like this, is are you really going to be using these features? Because if you just need a powerful device for something like gaming that doesn't really rely on the features of the phone, then you might not need a device this new and high-end. If raw processing power is really all you need, then in that case, I might suggest looking at an older variant of the Samsung Galaxy Note, because this one is definitely going to be high up there, and with all the features that it has, you're going to get the best value out of it if you're going to be using all those features. Now that we've gone over some of the specs of the phone, let's take a look at the hardware. So up top, we have a slot for the SIM card and the micro SD card, our noise canceling microphone right here, and the front facing camera. And then at the bottom, we have our stylus, our speaker, a USB-C charging port, and the microphone. The left side of the phone is completely clean, there's nothing going on here. And then on the right side of the phone, we have the volume up button, the volume down button, and the power button. On the back of the phone, we have our camera setup and our flash. The back of the phone has a glossy finish, and unfortunately, fingerprints really do show up a lot on this. In this lighting, you can definitely see there a lot. There's some lightings where it's okay, but just be aware that if you do get fingerprints on the back of the phone, they will show up. Overall, the phone feels very high-end, as it should. It is a flagship phone, so you definitely really expect that out of a phone like this. I really like this design. The bezels are so small that the screen almost wraps around the phone itself. It really gives that modern appearance. And personally, no matter how smartphones evolve in the future, I really can't imagine this phone looking old. I honestly can't think of where they would even go from here as far as design goes. I'm definitely a big fan. So in conclusion, is this phone worth buying in 2021? Now, in terms of value provided by what you're spending on it, I would say absolutely. Now, if it's a question of should you buy it, that really depends. If you're just using your phone for basic activities like making calls, sending text messages, even moderate activities like content consumption, photo editing, and some light gaming, then I really don't think you're going to need a phone like this. This phone is very high-end, it has a super powerful processor and all the features that you would expect out of a high-end flagship phone. This is most likely one of the most powerful phones out there right now. Definitely has the type of features and abilities that give it huge edges over phones like the iPhone and the Google Pixel. And in addition to that, the price really does back that up. I definitely will say this is not a cheap phone. So if you are thinking about purchasing it, I definitely would evaluate whether or not you really need all the stuff that comes with it. Now, if you're doing activities that require a really large amount of processing power, doing really intense things like photo and video editing and gaming, then this phone is going to be really valuable to you. And I would say especially if your primary need for a device has to do with content creation, then this really is something to consider because the camera on this is really amazing. Just from a quick look, I could tell that this phone probably has a better camera than a lot of those entry-level and even mid-range DSLRs out there. And another thing to consider is if you're into photography and videography and doing all that content creation stuff, then you might want to look at this phone because really, in order to get a DSLR that's better than the camera on this phone, you're gonna be spending equal to, if not a little bit more than the price of this phone. And this phone is not only a camera, but it can also do all the things you need like photo and video editing and that sort of stuff. So in that situation, you'd really want to compare the price of the camera to the price of not only the camera, but the device that you're actually going to be able to edit things on and post things from. So in that situation, I really do think this phone brings great value and it's really something to consider. All in all, I would say that whether or not you really should buy this phone really depends on your situation. But in general, this phone does provide great value and is definitely worth buying in 2021. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next one.